Okay, I am in Liberty, Missouri, and Liberty, Missouri is just outside of Kansas City. I'm in the downtown area of Liberty, Missouri, but in particular, I am here to see one thing, and we are walking up to it now. I've already been inside. They would not allow cameras inside, so I didn't take any pictures or anything, but I am here to see this. This is the Jesse James Bank Museum. This is the site of a bank robbery in 1866 by the Jesse James gang. Over here it says February 13th, 1866, first daylight bank robbery in the United States. It was done by the Jesse James gang. Jesse James wasn't actually here when this happened. He was recovering from injuries he'd gotten in another, I believe she said it was another robbery. But this building here was a bank in 1866, was held up by the Jesse James gang. They believe that one of the people who went in the bank was Frank James, Jesse James' brother, and another guy. This whole downtown area didn't look like this in 1866. In fact, she said that this building is the only one left that was there in 1866. The robbers went in this door right here. There were two people inside. They stole about $60,000 in 1866 money, which is a metric ass load of money today. One person died in the robbery. A 10-year-old boy was coming out of a building right there, was going to walk across the street here to visit a friend of his who worked in the bank, and bad timing. He walked out of this building here, wasn't this particular, but he walked out of a building that was here at the same time the robbers were coming out this door, and they shot the kid and killed him. So there was one person killed in this robbery. He was the only person injured, but there were $60,000 stolen out this door by, well, one of the people who actually went in the building, they're pretty sure, was Frank James, Jesse's brother. Jay said Jesse James was a few miles from here. It was his idea, it was his plan, but he didn't actually go in. Two guys went in and four guys stayed outside with the horses. So there were a total of 6 people involved in the actual robbery. But it was the Jesse James gang, and she made sure to point out to me that this is not a bullet hole. She said the only shots fired during the robbery itself were the shots that were fired at the boy coming out of this building, and all 3 shots hit him. And so there's no bullet holes anywhere. So anyway, that is the Jesse James Bank Museum, site of the first daylight bank robbery in the United States here in Liberty, Missouri. I am going next to Jesse James's house, which is about 20 minutes from here. So maybe I'll turn the camera on there too. All right, so I am at, and this behind me is the house that Jesse James was born in, and we're gonna walk around a little bit. You can't go inside the house. It's a small house. There's not much to see inside. You can look through all the doors, and we'll do that. But this is where Jesse James was born. He was born in that room right there. Let's see, I'm doing this, but that room right there is where Jesse James was born. His mother lived here until she died in 1911, and his brother Frank, who was also a member of his gang, lived here until he died in 1915. Frank's wife lived here. She died, I want to say, in the 40s. I don't remember, 1940. She was 91 when she died. I think she died in the 40s. And then Frank and, her name was Annie, his wife's, their son, who was also Frank. No, his name was Robert. I'm sorry, Robert. He lived in this house until the 50s. He didn't have any kids, so it got left to Jesse's grandkids, who didn't really give a shit about this one way or the other. In the 70s, it was sold to the county. It's Clay County, Missouri, and the county runs it as a historic site. So we're going to take a little walk around here and see what's what. But the first thing we're going to look at, I'm standing right in front of here. Let's flip the camera. This is the original location of Jesse James' grave. This is a replica of the monument that was here when Jesse was buried here. When he died in 1880, was killed in 1882. His mother had him buried here. He was moved, I believe it was 1902, when Jesse's wife died. They moved Jesse to be buried next to his wife. So his body's not here anymore. I've actually visited Jesse's current resting place. It's about 15 minutes from here. Last time we were in Kansas City, we went and visited that. But the reason she put Jesse's grave here is because his mother's bedroom is right there, and she wanted to keep an eye on the grave because of grave robbers. The reason this is a replica monument is because over the years the original got chipped away by souvenir hunters. What's left of it is in the little museum that's back over behind me. And there's not much left of it. It's just like a little pile of rocks. So this is a replica. This is what the original monument said, though. It says, devoted husband and father, Jesse Woodson James, September 5th, 1847, murdered April 3rd, 1882, by a traitor and coward whose name is not worthy to appear here. Jesse was killed by I believe a former member of his gang. I forget his name. Last name was Ford. I don't remember his first name. Anyway, this here is the back of Jesse's monument. Beloved wife and mother, Zerelda Amanda James. Now, Jesse's mother was named Zerelda, but this is not Jesse's mother's grave. This is Jesse's wife's grave. And she's not buried here anymore either. They moved them both to this other cemetery. But the fact that Jesse's mother and Jesse's wife both have the same kind of strange name is because Jesse's mother was Jesse's wife's aunt. So yes, that means that Jesse and his wife, Jesse James, married his cousin, literally, his first cousin, his aunt's daughter. So yeah, that's fun. But this is where Jesse James was originally buried, right here. Like I said, he's not here anymore. All this area back here is where the farm was. It was a working farm. There was 250 acres. They grew crops. They had, it sounds like she said they had a lot of pigs, and they had about 10 slaves at any given time. We're going to take a walk back here. There's a sign I can't read from where I'm sitting. I believe that this is a slave cabin. There's a lady who's giving tours of the place. The tour guide said that the slaves only lived here in the summer because it was too cold in the winter. In the winter they lived in the main house with the family, and there was only like 8 or 10 slaves. There wasn't a lot of slaves. This is a replica slave cabin. This is not the exact slave cabin that was here, but this is a replica of what a slave cabin on this site would have looked like. It is on the foundations of the original slave cabin, but this is a slave cabin. Pretty basic. If it rains, you're going to stay dry for the most part. Let's see what this sign says. Okay, so they talked about this in the museum. Jesse James was 15 in 1863, Union militia. Missouri was not, there were battles in Missouri, but it wasn't really a place where Union soldiers and Confederate soldiers fought each other. It was really like militias, civilians, basically gangs of civilians on one side beating up on gangs of civilians on the other side, and then the other gang would go beat up some people. So what happened here, Union militia people, basically civilians who were in support of the Union, came here, beat the shit out of Jesse looking for Frank, because Frank is his older brother, and Frank was in a guerrilla band who was attacking Union supports. His stepfather, Jesse's dad, died when Jesse was like 3, and his mom remarried twice, and this Reuben Samuel guy is Jesse's stepfather. They actually hung him. They hung him, and he was unconscious. They cut him down in time, and he didn't die. But they hung his stepfather and beat the crap out of Jesse, trying to get them to tell them where Frank was. They didn't do it, but they kind of, you know how you say when you attack civilians and children and that, and you end up creating more terrorists, more animosity. That's what happened a lot to Jesse. Jesse doesn't seem like, from what I've been able to tell, didn't really give much of a shit one way or the other about the South or the North. It's just that people from the North kicked the crap out of him and his family, and he wanted to kick the crap out of them back, which has led to his criminal career. So we're going to head back towards the house here, and I'm going to show you the house. I think we'll start around the front. The lady giving the tour, it's the lady in the the pink shirt over there. The lady giving the tour said that the front part, like the big part of the house here, was not there when Jesse lived here. There were a couple rooms on the front that Jesse's mother had put in after Jesse James died. And then this big room on the left here, this room right here, was put on by Bob, which was Frank James's son, who was the last person to live in the house. Well, him and his wife. And this room here, I believe she said, is like a more modern kitchen. Was put in the 1930s, I think she said. So it's not really, not really all that. Let's see if we can get a look inside. Yeah, it just looks like a kitchen. It's not really all that important to, let's see if I can go around to the door. All that important to the Jesse James story, because this was put up after Jesse James died. Let's look in these front two rooms. So yeah, this is just a bedroom. And then the kitchen is through there. And this room here was put on by Jesse's mother after Jesse died. Jesse died in 1882. His mother died in 1911. So somewhere in that time, this room was put on. And that kitchen on the end over there was put on in the 30s by Jesse's. It would be Jesse's nephew. This is another bedroom that was put on after Jesse died. So these two rooms aren't really all that relevant to the Jesse James part of the story. Walk around the corner here. So that's where we started right there, is Jesse James's grave. I'm going to stick the phone up here. This is the room that Jesse James was born in. So there. This is the room that Jesse James was born in. And you notice how the bed is slanted. The bed is slanted so that Jesse's mom, when she was laying in bed, could see Jesse's grave out yonder, to make sure it wasn't getting jacked up by grave robbers and souvenir hunters. But this is the room that Jesse was born in. This room was built in the 1820s, this part of the house. And then this room over here was the living room. And this room in the 1860s, I believe. This was like the front room, the living room, the kitchen kind of place when Jesse was alive. But during the 1860s or 70s, I don't remember when, the Pinkerton Agency, which was a company of private detectives and bounty hunters, they were trying to get, and they were supposed to be trying to capture him, but it sure doesn't sound like they were trying real hard to capture him as opposed to killing him. Going around the other side of the house to show you a window. But the Pinkertons were trying to capture Jesse and Frank James, and they weren't really trying to capture him. Oh, the lady also said that this water pump is 200 years old. It's original to when the house was built in the 1820s. And that chimney was also original. It was built in the 1820s. That's a 200-year-old chimney, too. This window right here, see if I can put the phone up, if I can show you inside. So that's the other side. That's the door right over there is the door I was just sticking the camera in. But the Pinkertons were trying to, let's be honest, they were trying to kill Frank and Jesse. They weren't trying to capture him and bring him to justice. They were trying to kill him. The Pinkertons were basically, they were private detectives. They were bounty hunters. They were a private security force. They were based out of Chicago, actually. But the Pinkertons were trying to kill Frank and Jesse, and they threw a bomb through that window. And when they threw the bomb, Frank and Jesse weren't here anymore. They had left. They might have been here earlier in the day, but they had left by the time the Pinkertons came. They had a camp just on the other side of these trees over here. These trees are about, she said, about 100 yards, about a football field worth of trees, and there's some open land. The Pinkertons had a camp over there. And the Pinkertons came over here late in the evening, and they threw a bomb through this window right here. And Frank and Jesse weren't home. Well, who was home was Frank and Jesse's stepfather, who during the war had been hung and then revived. Frank and Jesse's mom, Zerelda, and Frank and Jesse's half-brother, who was 9 years old. I forget his name. His half-brother, who was 9 years old. The half-brother was killed by the bomb. The stepfather was in the other room, so he didn't get hurt. But Jesse's mother Her arm was tore up pretty bad, and they ended up having to cut it off. They ended up amputating it. So if you look at later pictures, before her death of Jesse's mom, she only has one arm. There's a picture of the museum. The little museum is right down through there. The museum has a picture of her from late in life, and she doesn't have her arm. I believe it's her right arm that she lost. So she got her arm blowed off. Her son was killed. Her 9-year-old son was killed, and Frank and Jesse weren't even here. So, whoops, missed. So yeah, this is the Jesse James birthplace. Very interesting little house. The grounds are very well taken care of. She said that the original farm was 240 acres, but the county only owns about 40 acres. The family sold a lot of it off after Jesse and Frank died, and as the years went on after Jesse's mom died. A couple of interesting little tidbits about specifically the Jesse James's grave. Actually, we'll walk over there. Jesse's mom was a capitalist in every sense of the word. She knew relatively early on that her dead son and her still living son Frank were folk heroes, I guess is the word to some people. But she sensed a money-making opportunity, and so what she did was, and Frank's son, the one who inherited it when Jesse's mom died, and when Frank died, did the same thing. They would go and they would buy pistols and swords and knives, just like at the store, like at the general store or wherever. They would buy them off people, and then they would resell them and say they belonged to Jesse and Frank. And they would turn a profit that way. They would make money that way. They would say, it'd be like me going to Walmart or something. If I was like, somebody famous as kid, going to Walmart and buying something and saying, hey, this belonged to my famous ancestor. And when you're buying something off the guy's kid and off the guy's mom, you're probably going to think, yeah, okay, great, this belonged to Jesse James. You're going to pay a premium for it. So Jesse's mom would go buy pistols and knives and saddles and things from various places and turn around and resell them and just say they belong to Jesse when Jesse had been dead for years, which I think is, it's fraud, but it's fucking hysterical. That's brilliant. You got it in like that. But the other thing, and this is kind of famous, the other thing that Jesse's mom used to do, and like I said, this is not Jesse's grave anymore. He's not buried here anymore. But when Jesse James was buried here, his mom would go down. There's a creek that runs right along past that road over there. There's a creek. She would go down into the creek and collect pebbles, collect rocks. And there's rocks here, but she would put them on Jesse James's grave, leave them there for a week or so, and then sell them for 25 cents each. Jesse's mom ran tours of this house, and then when Jesse's mom died, Jesse's brother Frank ran tours of this house, and when Jesse's brother Frank died, Frank's kid ran tours of this house. Like the family ran tours of this house going back to the 1880s. So Jesse's mom would put pebbles on Jesse James's grave, leave them there for a few weeks, few days, who knows, collect them, and then sell them for 25 cents each, which in the 1890s, 25 cents was like $6. So it wasn't like she wasn't selling these things for nothing. She was selling these things and making a good dollar, and they're basically just rocks she picked up off the ground, tossed onto the grave, then picked them back up after a little while and resold them. So I think that's absolutely brilliant. People aren't standing in front of the door now. I'll walk back over here and we'll get another look. This is like I said, this part here, starting there, back to here, is the original house. So this is the room. Now that I can talk a little louder, people aren't standing right next to me. This is the room that they threw the bomb into. And that window right there is the window the bomb came in. And they said that Jesse's mom was sitting at the table, and all of this furniture is original because the family owned this house right up until the time when it was sold to the county. So like the family never moved out when Jesse James died. So Jesse James sat at that table. But Jesse's mom was sitting at this table, and the bomb rolled in through that window, and she kicked it into the fire, which let me see if I can get it. Yeah, into the fireplace. And then it exploded in the fireplace. And Jesse's younger brother was sitting like right where that chair would be in the corner. And the bomb exploded right next to him, which is why he died and why Jesse's mom lost her arm. And Jesse's dad was in the other room over here, which is why he wasn't hurt. Or Jesse's stepdad. Jesse's dad died in California. So, anyway, that is the Jesse James birthplace. Very interesting place. Actually, here's a couple pictures. Let's see. So this is the kitchen in this is the 1820s kitchen. This is the kitchen that was made in the 1930s. That's not as interesting as far as I'm concerned. Zerelda's bedroom with the bed slanted to face Jesse's grave. This is the bedroom up front that Frank is her son, Jesse's brother, and his wife Annie were in. So yeah, it is a very interesting little place. Well worth the $9 to come up here and take a look at this. Hope everyone has a good day. All right, so I've been here before, but I figured that I would stop again since I was so close. But first, the Jesse James birthplace, which I just left, they keep up a tradition that Jesse's mother started. I mentioned in the video I did from there about how Jesse James' mother, after he died, she would go down and pick up rocks and put them on Jesse James' grave, and then pick them up in a little bit and sell them to make money. The county, Clay County, Missouri, has kept up that tradition. In their gift shop, you can buy pebbles, and it's backwards, but it says Jesse James. And Jesse James' mother sold them for 25 cents. The museum sells them for 75 cents. So I figured for 75 cents, I would keep up the James family tradition and get a pebble. But we are in, I don't know the name of this cemetery, but up here is the grave of Jesse James. Like I said, I've been here before, but I figured since I was close, I would come again. So here we go. This here is the grave of Jesse James. And I got a sign there that says Jesse James. But this is Jesse James' grave, and somebody has left an empty bottle. I'm not sure what that's about, but his gravestone here says Jesse James, Taylor Squadron, Todd's Company, Quantrill's Regiment, Confederate States of America. This is not really historically accurate. Quantrill did not have a regiment. Quantrill's Raiders were not sanctioned by the Confederate government, so they probably shouldn't have CSA on there. The Confederate government did not sanction Quantrill, at least not officially. They might have, winked at them. But Quantrill's Raiders were really, they claimed to be working to further the interests of the Confederacy, but they continued up. Well, Quantrill didn't. He died, got killed. I think it's also spelled wrong. I think it's ILL. But anyway, Quantrill's Raiders, there's another guy called Bloody Bill Anderson, and he earned that nickname by going into towns and killing all of the Union supporters in the town. They were basically a criminal gang. They paid lip service to supporting the Confederacy, but they were not a regiment in the Confederacy. They were not sponsored or sanctioned by the Confederacy, at least not in any official way. And I don't know who Todd and Taylor even are. So Jesse James was a member of Quantrill's Raiders. This seems to imply that Quantrill's Raiders were a regiment in the Confederate Army, and that's just historically inaccurate. But you can put whatever you want on your gravestone. Maybe I'll put Lord High Master of all I survey on my gravestone, except that I've told Debbie to throw me in the yard waste, so I'm probably not going to have a gravestone. But this is another gravestone for Jesse James, born 1847, assassinated 1882. He was killed by a former member of his gang who shot him in the back. Jesse James was standing on a chair, adjusting a picture, straightening a picture on a wall, and this guy that he trusted shot him in the back. Shot him in the back of the head. I talked at the Reuben Samuel. I talked at the Birthplace about how Jesse James' stepdad was hung by Union, the Union version of Quantrill's Raiders. It wasn't like both sides didn't do it, but the Union version of Quantrill's Raiders. Jesse James' stepdad was hung, but they cut him down in time. He didn't die, but he was hung. This is him here, Dr. Reuben Samuel. And then over here, this is Jesse's mom, Zerelda. And yes, I think I talked about this in the other video too. Zerelda, different Zereldas. However, this Zerelda was named after this Zerelda. She was named after her aunt, who was her husband's mother. Jesse James married his first cousin. Welcome to the South. He was injured during the course of, and I don't remember if it was before or after the Civil War. I think it might have been before, at the very end of the Civil War. Jesse James was injured. He was shot. I don't remember if it was in combat or during a holdup, but he went to his aunt's house to recuperate because they were looking for him at his mother's house. He couldn't go there. So he went to his aunt's house and he met his cousin, fell in love with his cousin, married his cousin. So that's why she, Jesse James' wife, has the same name as Jesse James' mom. And then over here, Archie Samuel is, it says, killed by a bomb. He was 9 years old. 9 years old in 1875. Archie was Zerelda and Reuben's kid. Reuben and Zerelda was Jesse James' mother. Reuben was Jesse James' stepfather. Archie was Jesse James' half-brother. I talked at the Birthplace when I was over there about how Archie was killed by a bomb thrown into their house by the Pinkertons trying to get Jesse and Frank. And Frank is not buried here. But this is where Archie is buried. He was killed by a bomb that was intended for Jesse, but Jesse wasn't even there. So, anyway, that is the Jesse James gravesite. When we were here last time, there was a Confederate flag. Well, not the actual Confederate flag, the battle flag of the Army of Virginia, Northern Virginia, which Jesse James was not a member of. He was only, I think, 47. He was, 17 when the war ended. He was 13 when it started. Jesse James was not a member of the Confederate Army, ever. But there was a Confederate flag here. It was sticking, actually. There was a Confederate flag right where that bottle is, that stuck in the ground. I don't know. I don't know. There was a couple other Confederate flags at various other points, probably veterans of the Civil War at some point. Actually, I can see one up here. We'll take a walk up and look at this one up here, right there. But I was going to comment something about how Jesse James didn't serve in the Confederate Army, and that flag would not have been the flag that Jesse James marched under. But it's not here, so I can't really make that comment. Up here is a grave of a guy that looks like maybe he really was a Confederate veteran of the Confederate Army. Captain James Jeanette, Company C, 59th Virginia Infantry, Confederate States Army. So he was likely a Confederate Army veteran. And when we were here before, I think there was a Confederate flag here too, but there isn't now. So I don't know if the cemetery took them down or if it's just part of some general cleanup. We are going to take a walk up here because when I was walking to Jesse James' grave, there was a grave that caught my eye. And I want to come back up here and show it. A lot of old graves in this cemetery. 1922. There are several from the 1800s, early 1900s. But this one here with the American flag on it, Richard Sims Jr., 17. This is obviously not his original marker, I can't imagine. Richard Sims Jr., 1752 to 1850. A private in the 3rd Virginia Regiment of the Revolutionary War. Commanders Colonel Mercer and Marshall. Captain William Washington, which, if I remember correctly, William was Washington's... Wasn't he Washington's, adopted son's name? I don't know if it's the same guy or if he's related to George Washington at all. But there's some pennies up here. And then on the back of it, it says, he and 5 Darrell Dowse and others buried on a farm in Clay County, southwest. So I guess this is not an actual grave of his. It's, I forget what they call it. What do they call it when he's not buried there, but there's a marker for him? I forget what that's called. But then it says he served in the Battle of... Oh, I just got stuck. The Battle of New York Island, Stony Point, Brandywine, and Valley Forge. So, in addition to Confederate Army veterans... Well, I don't think he's buried here. It sounds like I don't know what that means. He and 5 Dar Real Douse. Is that a guy's name? Others. Buried on a farm in Clay County. Southwest 1/4, Section 6. I'm assuming this is like telling you where he's buried. But he's not buried here, apparently. And then it tells you what battles he was in. But this guy's a Revolutionary War veteran. And actually, his American flag still has the price tag on it. I think I'm going to pull that off. There. So anyway, this is the cemetery where Jesse James is buried, and a centograph for Richard Sims Jr. Died in 1850. Wow, 1752 to 1850. A man was 98 years old. Damn, son. Anyway, on to the next site. I have one more site to go to, then I got to go get ready for a football game. Bye. Okay, this is really weird. I am in a public park. It's just your standard town park district. The name is on that memorial, that stone there. It's like, you know, John Jones Park. I don't know, but I'm in a public park. And just at the edge of this public park, looks like it's on the grounds of the public park, is this. This is a family plot of, I don't know how many stones are in here. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 10, 15 stones. Probably more graves than that. But this is a graveyard. It's a family plot just attached to the community park. So like when you're down there on the skate park, just a little ways up the hill here is this graveyard. And one of the people buried in this graveyard, and let's see if he's marked. I assume he will be marked. Over here in the corner, James Alexander F. The F is for Frank. Frank James, the older brother of Jesse James, member of his gang, famous train robber, bank robber, Confederate partisan, is buried here with his wife Ann. We visited their house yesterday, about 20 minutes, half hour from here. But he is buried here in the middle of the community park, along with several other folks. Very, very odd. I'm assuming at one point this was owned by some family member. This looks like it's a small little family plot, and that they buried people here, and then at some point the land was given to the county. Let's see. Died 1803, I think that says. These don't have dates on them. This one here died 1880. 1912. Frank James died in 1915. This one died in 1886. I'm not going to be able to tell this one. And this is one of those situations where there's almost assuredly, even though there's no stones over in this part of the graveyard, there's almost assuredly people buried there. This one is weathered too badly to be read, so is this one. But I'm sure that this whole area over here is full of graves. So yeah, this is a little tiny family plot with the brick wall falling down in the middle of the public park. And over here it includes the grave of one Frank James, who early in his life was a famous train robber, bank robber, and later on in life kind of settled down and ended up being buried here. So there you go, Frank James. Very strange. Very odd that Frank James and all these people are buried. This one here's one 1948, 1959. That they're just buried here. They're just buried here. Same walking trail, so you can get up in the morning, get your coffee, go for a walk, and walk by the grave of Frank James. So anyway, close this gate back up. There we go. Close the gate back up, and hope everyone has a nice day.